In the distant future, humanity had crossed the dark sea of stars. They had built colonies around distant suns, settled planets once thought unreachable, and formed alliances with dozens of alien races. The galaxy had become a grand mosaic of life, color, and conflict. But among the countless species of the galactic concord, humanity was still considered young, energetic, ambitious, but reckless. Many alien empires saw humans as unpredictable beings, creatures driven by emotion, loyalty, and strange acts of kindness that made little sense to the cold logic of the stars. One such act happened 3 centuries ago. It began with a small ship called Solace. It was an old human research vessel with a crew of only 50 people. They were not soldiers or conquerors. They were scientists, explorers, and engineers searching for new worlds beyond the frontier. One day, the Solace picked up a distress signal from an unknown planet. The signal was faint and weak, fading in and out through the storm of cosmic dust. The coordinates led them to a dying world, a green world once full of oceans and forests now turning gray and silent. The people who lived there were called the Tyrell. They were a gentle, soft-spoken species with 4 eyes and long, crystal-like skin that shimmered like glass. A disaster had struck their planet. Their main star had flared unpredictably, burning away their crops and poisoning their air. Most of their population had already died, and the survivors were weak and hopeless. The Solace crew knew they could not save everyone. Their ship was small and the risk was great. Radiation storms hit the planet daily, and their supplies were limited. But still, Captain Mara Lorne, the leader of the Solace, made her choice. She said simply, "If we can save even one life, it's worth trying." For 6 months, the Solace crew worked side by side with the Tyrell. They built shelters, filtered water, and stabilized what was left of the Tyrell's power systems. They even repaired a few of the aliens' broken ships so they could evacuate survivors to a nearby moon. Many humans became sick from the planet's radiation, but none of them left until the last Tyrell family was safe. When the Solace finally departed, the Tyrell gathered at the launch site. They offered their crystal emblems, symbols of life and memory. The Tyrell elder, his voice weak but clear, told the humans, "We will never forget this kindness. Even when our stars fade, we will remember the people of Solace." The Solace left the system, vanishing into the endless black. It was never heard from again. But the story of its sacrifice spread among the Tyrell. They told it to their children as a sacred tale, the light that came from the blue star. As centuries passed, the galaxy changed. The Tyrell joined the galactic concord, rebuilt their civilization, and became known as peaceful diplomats. Humanity, meanwhile, grew stronger and more widespread. They built great fleets, colonized more worlds, and formed their own federation known as the United Human Systems. Yet with progress came pride, and with pride came conflict. Some alien powers began to fear humanity's growing strength. One of those was the Vedrix Dominion, a military empire of iron and shadow. The Vedrix were old, with technology beyond most races. They believed in domination, in order through fear, and they saw humanity's idealism as a weakness. At first, the Dominion ignored humanity. But when humans began to win trade routes and form new alliances, jealousy and suspicion grew. Slowly, Dominion agents started spreading lies, that humans could not be trusted, that they were dangerous, unpredictable, and destined to cause chaos. Then came the war. It began on the edge of known space. When a human cargo station near the Vedrix border went dark, no signal, no distress call, nothing. Patrol ships sent to investigate vanished too. Within weeks, Dominion fleets crossed into human territory, claiming it was defensive action. The first worlds fell quickly. The Dominion's technology was overwhelming. Their ships moved like shadows. Their weapons melted through human defenses. Entire cities were silenced in hours. The Galactic Concord watched but did not act. Many species were afraid to stand against the Dominion. Others whispered that humanity had brought this upon themselves. The Tyrell watched in silence too, their council torn between neutrality and conscience. They remembered the Solace, the ship that had once saved their people. But the new generation of Tyrell leaders feared the Dominion's wrath. Only one elder still spoke of the old story, Elder Saren, who had been a child when the humans had rescued his family. He stood before the Tyrell Council and said, "When we were dying, they came for us. They did not ask for payment or alliance or praise. They came because it was right. Now humanity is the one calling in the dark, and we must choose whether we will answer. But the council hesitated. Fear was heavy in the air. Meanwhile, in human space, the flames of war spread. The Dominion attacked world after world, forcing humanity to retreat to their core colonies. On the planet New Carthage, a shining world of trade and science, civilians rushed into underground shelters as the skies burned. The world that had once represented peace became a battlefield. Yet even as everything fell apart, something began to change among humans. In every destroyed colony, in every refugee fleet, messages began to circulate. Fragments of hope, memories of unity. Stories about how humans once helped others, how they stood together in impossible times. Soldiers and civilians began to remember who they were. On one hidden broadcast, an old historian spoke to millions. They may take our worlds, but they will never take our memory. Humanity remembers every kindness and every cruelty, and we will answer both. The word spread like wildfire. Across space, humans began to unite again. Engineers building secret ships, scientists working day and night, old enemies putting aside their differences. The Dominion thought they were crushing a weak race, but in truth, they were forging something stronger, a humanity that remembered. Back in Tyrell space, Elder Saren looked at the old crystal emblem he had kept for 3 centuries, a small piece of glass shaped like a tear. It had been given to him by a human child aboard the Solace. He looked up at the stars and whispered softly, "We have not forgotten, and we never will." At that moment he sent a message, a secret transmission to the human core worlds. It was short, written in the old code of the conquered and carried through hidden channels. To the children of Solace, the Tyrell remember, you are not alone. That message was the first spark of something greater. Across the galaxy, humanity was rising again, not with rage but with memory. They had been kind, they had been patient, but now they would remember every fallen world, every broken promise, and every friend who stood beside them. And in the darkness beyond the stars, something began to awaken. Old fleets, silent shipyards, and the spirit of a species that refused to forget, because in the end no kindness escapes human memory. And when the time comes, their vengeance would not be born of hate, it would be born of remembrance. The planet New Carthage floated like a blue-green jewel among the stars. It was one of humanity's brightest worlds, a center of trade, learning, and peace. Tall white towers touched the clouds, and floating gardens surrounded the great city of Aurelia Prime. It was a place where humans believed war would never reach again. But one morning, the sky caught fire. Without warning, the Vadrix Dominion fleet arrived in orbit. Their ships were dark and smooth, shaped like long spears surrounded by shimmering energy fields. The people of New Carthage looked up in confusion, believing it was a diplomatic visit. Then the first bombardment began. Energy beams rained down, slicing through the planet's defense grid. Towers melted into glass, oceans boiled, and the air itself turned red. Among the chaos stood Commander Alara Miles, head of the local defense force. She had once been a scientist before becoming a soldier, and she loved New Carthage with all her heart. When she saw the Dominion ships breaking through the defense line, she knew there was only one choice left: fight to the end. "Activate all planetary shields," she ordered. Her voice was calm even as the ground trembled. "Evacuate the lower cities. Prioritize the children first." Her officers rushed to obey. In the control center, screens flashed with distress signals from every region. Civilian ships tried to escape the atmosphere but were shot down one by one. The Dominion was not here to conquer. They were here to destroy. Alara clenched her fists. "They think we'll kneel. They're wrong." Across the city, people fought to survive. Firefighters dragged survivors from burning buildings. Medical drones raced through the streets, and parents held their children close as the sky rained light. On the orbital station, Helios, Captain Darren Locke prepared his small fleet of old warships, relics from the last galactic conflict. Their weapons were outdated, their shields weak, but they were all that stood between the Dominion and the total destruction of New Carthage. "Captain, our chances are less than 1%, his AI assistant said quietly. Locke smiled sadly. "Then let's make that 1% count." His fleet launched into space by 12 ships against hundreds. From the planet below, people watched as small streaks of light rose from the atmosphere, heading straight for the enemy. The first clash was brutal. Dominion ships moved like predators, their weapons burning through human armor in seconds. One by one, the defenders fell. But every human ship took a Dominion cruiser with it, fighting to the very last spark. When Captain Locke's ship, the Resolute, lost its engines, he sent his final message to the surface. "Tell Commander Miles we held as long as we could. Humanity stands." Then the Resolute charged its engines and rammed into the Dominion flagship. The explosion lit up the entire orbit, a flash bright enough to be seen from the ground. Commander Lyra Miles saw the light from her command center. For a moment, the burning sky was filled with beauty, a reminder that courage still existed even in defeat. She turned to her officers. "Transmit this message to all human colonies, to every ship that can hear us." Her communications officer nodded and began recording. Lyra looked directly into the camera, her uniform torn, her face covered in ash. "This is Commander Lyra Miles of New Carthage. The Dominion believes they can erase us. They believe humans forget. But we remember everything. We remember every kindness given and every cruelty faced. You can destroy our cities, but not our will. You mistake mercy for weakness. Humanity remembers, and we endure." The message was sent seconds before the Dominion bombarded the capital. The control center collapsed. The last thing Lyra saw was the glow of the sky and the faint whisper of the wind. Days later, fragments of her message reached other human colonies. At first, people didn't believe it. They thought New Carthage had survived, that the Dominion would stop. But when more colonies were attacked, the truth became clear. The Dominion wanted to erase humanity completely. On Earth, the old capital of Geneva Prime fell silent. Leaders argued, fleets scattered, and fear spread across the systems. But Lyra's message began to change everything. Miners on Mars replayed her words again and again. Freighter crews whispered them while hiding in asteroid belts. Refugees on distant moons repeated the line, "Humanity remembers." It became a chant, a promise and a fire in the hearts of those who had lost everything. Far across the stars, on the peaceful world of Tyrell Prime, Elder Saren received the encrypted human broadcast. He watched the recording in silence, his 4 eyes reflecting the flames of New Carthage. The young Tyrell around him trembled in fear. "Elder," one said softly, "we cannot oppose the Dominion. They will destroy us too." Saren shook his head slowly. "If we forget kindness, then we lose what makes us worthy to exist." He opened a hidden chamber, one untouched for 3 centuries. Inside was an old human artifact, a piece of hull plating from the ship Solace preserved as sacred history. Upon it were carved words written in English and Tyrell, "For all lives worth saving." Saren placed his hand on the metal and whispered, "Children of Solace, it is time we repay the debt of life." He called a secret meeting of trusted Tyrell diplomats and scientists. Together they planned how to send information to the humans, fleet routes, Dominion weaknesses, and safe travel corridors through Tyrell space. They knew it was dangerous. If the Dominion discovered their help, the Tyrell homeworld could face the same fate as New Carthage. Still, Saren said simply, "No kindness escapes human memory. But neither should it escape ours." Meanwhile, scattered human colonies began to unite. The survivors of New Carthage carried stories of bravery, of Lyra Miles, Captain Locke, and the people who refused to surrender. Refugees from a dozen worlds gathered on Luna Station, hidden in the shadows of Earth's moon. There a small council was formed, led by former admirals, scientists, and engineers. They called themselves the Soul Assembly. "Humanity stands at the edge of extinction," said Admiral Keon Vasari, a stern man with gray eyes. "But we have something the Dominion cannot understand, memory. They think we are broken. They are wrong." Dr. Leon Rao, a scientist from New Carthage, stood beside him. "We still have the Sol shipyards. They were shut down centuries ago after the Titan Age. But if we can reactivate them, then we can build again," Vasari finished. "We can fight again." The room fell silent as the meaning of his words settled. Humanity would rise, not in blind rage, but in remembrance. Across the galaxy, the Dominion's War Council celebrated. Their leader, Lord Vadrix Prime, watched the burning ruins of human worlds through holographic projections. "The humans are finished," his advisor said proudly. "Their spirit is broken. They will bow soon. GalacticPrime's cold-scaled face twisted into something like a smile. No, not yet. Humans are stubborn creatures. I want them to see their own failure before the end. Only then will they understand order. He looked at the display of New Carthage, now a silent wasteland. They will remember this moment, he said. But memory cannot save them. He was wrong, because across the void, hidden in forgotten systems, humans were preparing. Engineers reactivated old reactors buried under ice. Miners repurposed asteroid machines into weapons. Scientists revived ancient AIs that once controlled the great fleets of Sol. And somewhere, deep beneath the ruins of New Carthage, a signal blinked, weak but alive. It was Commander Lyra Miles's beacon. She had survived. Wounded and trapped under debris, she was rescued by a small group of civilians. Her first words when she awoke were simple and steady. We are not finished. Humanity's story had only begun. The burning of New Carthage would be remembered not as their fall, but as their rebirth. The Dominion had taught them pain, but also unity. And in the cold silence of space, as the last embers of the destroyed world faded, humanity's promise burned brighter than ever. We remember. We endure. We will rise. The galaxy had gone quiet. After the fall of New Carthage, the Vadrix Dominion believed humanity was finished. Their fleets pulled back, leaving behind burning worlds and shattered colonies. Only a few human systems still survived, hiding, rebuilding, waiting. But in the silence of loss, something began to move, deep beneath the gray surface of the moon. In an ancient command chamber sealed for over 200 years, old lights flickered to life. Dust drifted through the air as energy surged into forgotten machines. Giant doors slowly opened, revealing a vast underground shipyard, the heart of what had once been called the Sol Defense Network. Admiral Keon Vasari stood before the awakening machines. His face was lined with age and exhaustion, but his eyes burned with purpose. Around him, engineers and AI technicians worked day and night, reconnecting old systems and reviving ancient codes. Status report, he said quietly. An engineer wiped sweat from her forehead. We've restored 90% of the Titan docks, sir. Power grids are stable. The AI core is still locked. We're trying to reinitialize it. Vasari looked at the massive sphere in the center of the room. The Helios core, a super-intelligent AI that once controlled all human fleets during the Titan Age. It had been shut down centuries ago after the Wars of Rebellion. Now humanity needed it again. He placed his hand on the glass surface. Helios, he said softly. This is Admiral Vasari of the United Human Systems. Humanity calls you once more. We need you. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the air. The sphere glowed faintly and a calm voice echoed through the chamber. Admiral Keon Vasari. Command code recognized. Status, critical. Humanity under threat. The crew gasped as the AI came fully online. The room lit up with holograms of ships, planets, and Dominion fleets. Directive 1, protect humanity. Directive 2, preserve life. Directive 3, restore balance. Vasari smiled for the first time in weeks. Then let's begin. Across Sol system, silent shipyards that had slept for generations roared back to life. Massive structures on Mars, Venus, and Jupiter's moons came alive with the hum of energy. The ancient Titan-class dreadnoughts, once considered myths, were rebuilt. Each was the size of a small moon, armed with gravity cannons and energy shields strong enough to deflect meteor impacts. Alongside them, new ships were designed, smaller, faster, made with hybrid technology combining human and alien designs. Engineers worked with fierce determination. Many of them had lost their families to the Dominion. They poured their grief into creation. Dr. Leon Rao, now Chief of Design, oversaw the construction of a new flagship named Solace's Light in honor of the first human ship that had once saved the Tyrell. When a young worker asked why she chose that name, Leon replied, "Because kindness started this story, and kindness will finish it." Meanwhile, Commander Lyra Miles, recovered from her wounds, joined the Sol Assembly in secret. Her survival had become a symbol of hope for all humanity. When she entered the command hall for the first time, everyone stood in silent respect. She nodded to Admiral Vasari and said, "I heard you woke up the old ghosts." Vasari smiled faintly. "Sometimes the past is all we have left to guide us." Alara looked at the holographic display of the galaxy. Red zones marked Dominion control. Small blue sparks represented surviving human colonies. The red nearly swallowed the map. "We can't fight them head-on," she said. "We need strategy. Surprise. They think we're broken and we'll use that against them." Helios, the AI, projected a new plan onto the table. "Operation Echo Dawn," it said. "Objective: reclaim lost systems through coordinated stealth attacks. Strategy: misdirection, speed, and psychological disruption." Alara crossed her arms. In simple words, hit them where it hurts, disappear, and let them fear the dark. The room filled with quiet approval. Humanity was beginning to remember how to fight. Across hidden bases, pilots trained day and night. Many were refugees, miners, or freighter captains who had never seen real combat, but their spirit was unbreakable. One young pilot, Lieutenant Arik Dorn, wrote a simple message on the side of his fighter before his first launch: "For New Carthage." When someone asked if he wanted to add his name, he shook his head and said, "Names fade. Memories don't." That line spread quickly through the fleet. Soon, every pilot and soldier painted similar words on their ships: for solace, for Earth, for humanity. It was no longer about revenge. It was about remembrance. As the Sol fleet grew stronger, the Tyrell began to help in secret. They sent hidden convoys filled with supplies and data, using untraceable codes. Their scientists shared information about Dominion weaknesses, shield frequencies, and warp routes. One message arrived from Elder Saren himself: "Children of Solace, our hearts are with you. The Dominion will not expect what is coming. The Tyrell stand ready to assist quietly as we once received help from you." Alara read the message with quiet emotion. "Even now they remember," she said softly. 3 centuries later, Dr. Leon smiled. "That's humanity's greatest weapon. Memory connects us all." Months passed. Hidden worlds turned into factories. Abandoned asteroids became refueling stations. Small victories began to appear. Dominion patrols disappearing in empty sectors, supply lines cut, communication towers sabotaged. The Dominion grew uneasy. Their commanders couldn't understand how humans kept returning stronger after every defeat. Reports reached Lord Vadrix Prime. "The humans are rebuilding," one officer warned. "Their fleets are active again," Vadrix frowned. "Impossible. We destroyed their shipyards. Then they built new ones, my lord, in places we never found." The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "They are insects. Crush them again." But deep inside, for the first time, he felt a flicker of unease. Back in Sol system, the Great Fleet finally stood ready. Hundreds of ships filled the void, arranged in perfect formation around Earth's orbit. The stars reflected on their silver hulls, and the blue glow of engines painted the dark with light. Admiral Vasari stood on the bridge of the flagship Solace's Light, looking out the window. Beside him stood Commander Miles. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "It's only the beginning," Vasari replied. "This time we don't fight for power. We fight for every life that trusted us to remember." Helios's voice came through the intercom. "All systems operational. Fleet readiness at 98%. Awaiting command authorization." Alara looked at Vasari. "Are you ready to give the order?" He nodded. "Helios, transmit to all ships." A moment later, every human vessel across the system received the same message. A simple line, carried on every frequency, reaching every pilot and soldier. "For every kindness remembered. For every world lost. Sol fleet, awaken." Engines ignited in unison. Thousands of blue lights blazed to life, lighting the night side of Earth like a sunrise. Humanity had returned to the stars. Across the galaxy, other civilizations began to notice. The Tyrell watched with pride. The small species they once called saviors now rising again. The peaceful Voran Republic began reconsidering its neutrality. Even the cautious Drayan League started offering quiet assistance. The idea of humanity had become larger than humans themselves. It was a symbol that kindness, courage, and memory could survive even the darkest times. And for the first time in decades, the Dominion began to feel something they had never known before: fear. As the Solace's Light prepared to leave orbit, Alara Miles stood alone on the observation deck, looking down at the blue planet below. Earth, scarred but alive. She remembered the faces of those lost on New Carthage. Captain Locke, the children they couldn't save, the friends who never gave up. she whispered softly. We're coming back. Not for revenge, but for balance. For peace through strength. Behind her, Helios's holographic form appeared, a calm figure of light. Commander, it said, when humanity remembers, the stars listen. Lyra smiled faintly. Then let's remind them who we are. With that, she gave the final command. Set course for the frontier. Operation Echo Dawn begins. The stars stretched into long trails of light as the fleet entered warp. And far behind them, on the silent surface of the moon, the symbol of humanity's greatest truth glowed once more on an ancient wall. No kindness escapes human memory, and their vengeance can quake the stars. The Vaedric's dominion had grown overconfident. After decades of conquest, their fleet stretched across hundreds of star systems. They believed humanity, weakened and scattered, would not dare rise again. They were wrong. Deep in the outer rim of the galaxy, the Sol fleet moved like shadows among the asteroids and gas clouds. Thousands of human ships, some old and some newly built, slipped through Dominion patrols undetected. Their movements were precise, coordinated, and silent. A single, united mind working across thousands of vessels. On the bridge of the flagship Solace's Light, Commander Lyra Miles looked at the holographic map. Red dots marked Dominion fleets. Blue dots marked scattered human colonies. Lines traced potential hyperspace routes. Helios, she said, are the Dominion fleets aware of our presence? Negative, Commander, the AI replied. All systems indicate they consider this sector unoccupied. Detection probability is less than 0.02%. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. Then let's make them regret that mistake. The first strike came at Vaedric's Orbital Station 07, a key supply hub. Human ships appeared suddenly from hyperspace corridors that no Dominion chart had recorded. Energy cannons fired, ripping through the station's defenses with surgical precision. Lieutenant Arik Dorn, flying his fighter alongside dozens of others, zipped through debris fields targeting weapons arrays. Each pilot had painted words on their hulls. For New Carthage, for Solace, for humanity. These messages carried the weight of memory, of loss, and of hope. The Dominion forces had no warning. Their patrols scrambled, but every reaction was anticipated by the humans. The station exploded in a burst of fire, lighting up the void. From the observation deck of Solace's Light, Lyra watched as holograms displayed the effect across the system. The human fleet had struck fast, hidden and unstoppable. Helios, she said. How long before the Dominion realizes what we've done? Approximately 15 minutes, Helios replied. However, they will underestimate our next move. Lyra nodded. Good, let's keep them guessing. As the first shockwave spread, the Dominion tried to respond. Commander Valix, one of their top fleet leaders, barked orders through the bridge of his flagship. Deploy interceptors. Track the human fleet. Destroy every ship before they can escape. Dominion fighters rushed out, their energy fields glowing against the darkness. But the humans did not engage directly. Instead, they used hyperwave decoys, small agile ships mimicking entire fleets, to confuse the enemy. Human warships struck silently from angles no Dominion sensors could predict. Gravity cannons warped space itself, tearing apart Dominion cruisers while leaving human vessels untouched. Every attack was precise, every maneuver planned, Lieutenant Dorn shouted over the comms. They'll never expect this pattern. Keep moving. From the Dominion perspective, chaos reigned. Their ships, trained for centuries in conventional tactics, could not match the speed, stealth, and coordination of the humans. For the first time, fear touched their hearts. On the Tyrell homeworld, Elder Saren watched the battle unfold through his secret observation array. His 4 eyes reflected the flashes of exploding fleets. You see, he said to the young Tyrell who had doubted him. The humans remember kindness. And when memory carries weight, it becomes more than courage. It becomes power. The Tyrell provided discreet support, sending vital information about Dominion patrols and warp coordinates. Every secret they shared was a repayment of an ancient debt, the memory of Solace's selfless mission centuries ago. No kindness escapes human memory, Saren whispered. And now the galaxy remembers it too. Back in human space, the battle escalated. The Sol fleet moved in waves. Small ships struck first, disabling communication relays and energy fields. Larger vessels followed, using their heavy weapons to dismantle cruisers and destroy supply depots. The Dominion attempted to form defensive lines, but the humans did not fight conventionally. Every attack seemed random, chaotic, yet it was all part of Helios's calculation. Humans used feints, misdirection, and stealth in ways no Dominion AI could anticipate. Commander Lyra watched as a large Dominion battleship fired at a phantom fleet projected by decoy drones. The missiles flew harmlessly into empty space while human dreadnoughts attacked the real targets from the flank. She whispered to herself, "We may have lost New Carthage, but we will not lose the galaxy." In one corner of the battlefield, a small squad of human ships led by Lieutenant Dorn moved through an asteroid belt, using the natural debris as cover. They targeted a Dominion supply convoy, carefully dismantling each ship without detection. After the attack, Dorn transmitted a short, encrypted message back to Solace's light. "One more for New Carthage," Alara smiled faintly. "Every victory counts, Arik. Every life remembered is a spark we carry forward." Helios projected a visual of the Dominion fleet in disarray. Systems that had been tightly coordinated now struggled. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and panic spread among the crews. Humanity's precision, patience, and determination had created a ripple of fear no Dominion commander could control. Lord Vadrix Prime, observing the chaos from his flagship, felt a rare chill. "Impossible," he muttered. "They were broken. And yet they strike with the memory of every world we destroyed." He had underestimated the humans' greatest strength, not their weapons, not their numbers, but their ability to remember. Every ship carried a story of survival. Every pilot, a family lost or saved. Every commander, a lesson learned from past sacrifice. He realized too late that memory was not weakness. It was the engine of strategy, the spark of innovation, and the shield of courage. By the time the first wave of the battle ended, the Dominion had suffered severe losses. Supply stations were destroyed, patrols scattered, and morale plummeted. Even minor human victories like freeing enslaved colonies or rescuing trapped civilians amplified the impact of the attacks. On board Solace's light, Commander Alara addressed her fleet. "Remember every life we protect. Remember every kindness that led us here. Today we fight not just for survival but for justice, for hope, and for every world that trusted us." Her words echoed across the fleet, reaching pilots, soldiers, and engineers alike. Ships flashed forward in formation, engines glowing blue against the darkness of space. The Dominion tried to mount a counterattack, but their movements were slow and predictable. Humanity struck again and again, leaving the enemy fleet reeling. Amid the chaos, the Sol fleet discovered something unexpected. The Dominion's command structure was divided. Several commanders disagreed with Vadrix Prime's orders, arguing that humans were not yet ready for organized retaliation. This internal conflict, combined with the humans' calculated strikes, gave the fleet opportunities for further surprise attacks. In the heat of battle, the humans were not cruel. They avoided unnecessary civilian casualties and focused on disabling military installations, freeing colonies, and protecting vulnerable systems. Every action reminded them why they fought, the memory of those who had been kind, those who had believed in humanity, and the lives they hoped to preserve. Days turned into weeks. The Dominion struggled to regain control, while the Sol fleet became more daring. Strategic systems once thought lost were liberated. Supply chains were disrupted. Dominion propaganda stations were destroyed, replaced by messages of hope broadcast from human-controlled satellites. We remember New Carthage. We remember Solace. We remember every life. Humanity endures. Across the galaxy, oppressed species listened. Some began to resist quietly. Others provided secret support to the humans, inspired by a race that fought with memory as much as weapons. The Sol fleet had become more than just ships. They had become a symbol, a moving message to all who could see or hear. Kindness remembered is strength. Courage remembered is power. And vengeance born of memory is unstoppable. At the end of the first major campaign, Commander Alara Miles looked at the galaxy spread before her on the holographic map. Red zones were smaller. Blue dots had grown. "Helios," she said softly. "We've shown them the first spark, but the fire has only just begun." "Confirmed, Commander," the AI replied. "The Dominion's morale is low. Human influence in the Outer Rim is increasing. Strategic advantage, humanity." Alara nodded. "Good. Prepare the fleet for the next stage." Operation Echo Dawn continues. And far beyond the battlefield, hidden in the darkness of space, a whisper traveled between human colonies and allies. No kindness escapes human memory, and when it returns it can shake the stars. The Dominion had felt the first tremor. The galaxy would feel the rest. The galaxy had changed. After months of strikes, ambushes, and liberation campaigns, the Dominion could no longer hold its sprawling empire together. Systems once under their control had risen in rebellion, inspired by the courage and memory of humanity. On board the flagship Solace's Light, Commander Lyra Miles and Admiral Keon Vasari observed the movement of fleets across the stars. Dominion ships fled from systems they once ruled. Supply lines were broken. Civilian worlds were being liberated. Everywhere humans remembered, and the galaxy began to remember with them. Helios's voice broke the silence, calm and steady. Commander Miles, Admiral Vasari, strategic advantage has reached 98%. Dominion forces are fragmented. Probability of successful liberation near certainty. Ilara's jaw tightened. We must act carefully. Even fractured, the Dominion can still strike back. Vasari nodded. We've learned from them. They do not adapt as quickly as memory and unity allow. The final confrontation would take place at the Vadrix capital system, the heart of the Dominion Empire. The planet Vadrix Prime was protected by a massive fleet and an impenetrable orbital fortress. Many believed it was impossible to breach, but humanity did not attack blindly. Operation Echo Dawn had taught them patience, precision, and the power of surprise. The Sol fleet split into multiple formations, using hidden jump points that only Helios could calculate. While one fleet engaged the Dominion fleet at the edge of the system, another moved through uncharted hyperspace corridors, appearing directly above Vadrix Prime without warning. On the planet, Dominion citizens looked up at the sky, watching human ships descend like meteors. Some fled in panic while others simply froze, realizing the humans had returned. In orbit above Vadrix Prime, Commander Lyra Miles addressed her fleet. Today, we fight not for revenge. We fight for every life that trusted us. Every kindness remembered is a spark that guides us. Today we set the stars right. The fleet responded with a unified roar of engines, a sound that reverberated through space itself. Pilots and crews felt a surge of courage and purpose. Every ship carried the weight of memory, the lives lost, the kindness received, and the hope that humanity would endure. Helios calculated attack trajectories with flawless precision. Dominion defenses, strong and unwavering for centuries, began to crumble under the coordinated strikes. Energy barriers melted. Weapons arrays were destroyed. Ships fell in the thousands. Meanwhile, on the ground of Vadrix Prime, civilians and oppressed species watched in awe as humans liberated cities. Human forces moved swiftly, disabling weapons without unnecessary destruction and rescuing prisoners wherever possible. Elder Saren of the Trell, monitoring the battle remotely, whispered to his aides, "See? Kindness remembered and returned has more power than hatred or fear. The humans fight not for cruelty, but for memory itself." Across the galaxy, species who had once suffered under Dominion rule began rising. Minor fleets joined the Sol fleet. Planets once silent began broadcasting messages of rebellion. Humanity's courage had sparked a wave of hope stronger than any weapon. On board Solace's Light, Lyra watched the largest Dominion battleship approaching. Its hull was massive, energy cannons aimed to obliterate everything. "Helios, calculate the odds," she commanded. "Probability of success, 52%. Caution advised." Lyra nodded. "Then we fight with more than probability. We fight with memory." The Sol fleet fired in perfect coordination. Drones and smaller ships created diversions while the dreadnoughts launched devastating volleys. Energy shields clashed. The largest Dominion ship fired back, but the humans anticipated every move. Lieutenant Arik Dorn, leading a squadron of fighters, dodged beams and missiles, taking calculated risks. His message painted across his fighter's hull read simply, "For every world they tried to erase." With a final, coordinated strike, the Dominion flagship exploded, a massive fireball illuminating the system. The remaining Dominion ships, leaderless and broken, surrendered or fled into hyperspace. With Vadrix Prime itself now exposed, the human fleet descended. The planet was scarred, but civilians who had survived hid underground. Human forces worked swiftly to secure cities, provide aid, and ensure that the planet's population would be protected. Lyra walked through the streets later that day, among civilians and freed prisoners. Children ran toward her and elders bowed in gratitude. She knelt to meet a small Tyrell girl who had been hidden on the planet for safety. "You are safe now," Lyra said gently. The girl smiled. "I remember what your people did for us a long time ago." Lyra's eyes misted. "Then we will always remember you too." Back in the Sol Assembly, the surviving leaders of humanity gathered for the first post-battle council. Every colony, every fleet, and every representative of freed worlds was present. Admiral Vasari spoke first. "We have won not through hatred, not through conquest, but through memory, courage, and unity. We remembered our friends, our fallen, and those who showed us kindness. Today, humanity and our allies have rewritten the future of the galaxy." Dr. Leon Rao added, "This victory is a reminder. Every act of kindness matters. Every life we protect becomes part of a chain that can change the course of history." Elder Saren, secretly present as a Tyrell representative, bowed to the humans. 3 centuries ago, your ancestors saved my people. Today, you have saved the galaxy. We will never forget. Humanity's memory is stronger than any weapon." Lyra stepped forward and addressed all assembled. "We do not claim victory for ourselves. We claim it for every life that trusted us, every kindness remembered, and every hope that could not be extinguished. Let this day be remembered not as the fall of the Dominion, but as the rise of a galaxy united through memory and courage." News of the victory spread across star systems. Worlds that had once trembled under Dominion rule now celebrated liberation. Messages of gratitude arrived from distant species. Children learned of humanity's courage and the story of the Solace. Even the Dominion's surviving leaders realized that humanity had not only survived, they had inspired the galaxy. Their empire was no longer feared. It was remembered as an example of the danger of underestimating memory, kindness, and unity. Lord Vadrix Prime, captured and brought before the council, looked at the humans assembled. For the first time, he understood what had defeated him. "Your strength. It is not only in your weapons," he said quietly. "It is in what you remember," Lyra nodded. "Yes, and every act of kindness, every sacrifice, every life matters. That is our power. That is humanity." Months later, humanity rebuilt what had been lost. Planets like New Carthage were restored, not just as cities, but as symbols of resilience. The Sol fleet remained vigilant, protecting all who could not protect themselves. The Tyrell returned to their homeworld with pride, knowing their secret aid had contributed to victory. They honored the humans who had once saved them, and the humans who had now returned that memory across the stars. Across the galaxy, a new age began, one in which kindness was remembered, courage was celebrated, and every act, no matter how small, had the power to change history. On the observation deck of Solace's Light, Commander Alara Miles looked at the galaxy. The stars shone brighter now, as if celebrating the unity of countless civilizations. Helios projected a holographic message from every colony, every pilot, every species who had joined the fight. "We remember humanity. We remember courage. We remember every act of kindness." Ilara's eyes glistened. "The galaxy remembers." She turned to Admiral Vasari. "We've done what we promised. We remembered. And now the universe knows us. No kindness escapes human memory." Vasari smiled. "And if anyone dares threaten the innocent again?" Ilara looked out at the stars. "Then they will feel what happens when memory becomes action. They will see that humanity's vengeance is not born of hatred, but of remembrance, and when provoked, it can quake the stars themselves." Far across the void, in the silent reaches of space, the legend of humanity spread. Stories were told of courage, of sacrifice, and of the solace. Children learned that kindness, remembered and returned, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the stars, the universe seemed to pause, as if listening to the promise that had begun centuries ago. No kindness escapes human memory, and their vengeance, when needed, can quake the stars. Humanity had risen, not through fear, not through domination, but through memory, unity, and the enduring courage of countless hearts. The galaxy was safe, for now, but the stars would always remember.